Welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife, and in the military especially, it can be a blessing and a strain on any relationship, particularly marriages, and that's something I want to talk with you guys about today. I've seen this in my marriage, that it has been, two sides of the same coin in some ways, and I want to just, cover that. As always, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. Okay, before we jump into today's topic, just a couple housekeeping things. We have almost reached 100 episodes. That is going to be next week, and I am super excited about that. So we've got some special things coming. I'm working on some collaborations and some interviews coming up. I'm so excited for the feedback I'm getting. I've gotten some people asking to be included on the channel, on the podcast, and that makes me happy. On the sad side, I just want to extend my condolences and my sincere prayers for the family of the service members, the 9 service members, soldiers who passed away last week in the unfortunate crash in Kentucky, Tennessee, Fort Campbell area. That is not something I'm going to be covering in detail right now. Not today's topic, but I just felt like I should say that. That said, I know there has been a lot going on in the news, and believe me, I will get back to, how what goes on in the world affects us as military families, soon enough. But there are other things I just really felt that needed to be covered. I just felt important and wanting to share with you guys before all of that. And that leads me to today's topic, which is marriages in the military. And part of the reason why this has come up into my mind recently is just because of the fact that we know a couple, we've got some couples that we know, and few military spouses I know that are recently married, and we're trying to be supportive and helping them out in adapting to military life, as well as a few that we know that are in the process of divorcing. And so it's one of those situations where it was really weighing on my heart, and I wanted to share some stuff with y'all. And in regards to that, I actually reached out on some of my social media stuff for the podcast and in some military spouse social media groups I'm a part of, and was trying to get some input from different spouses on how military life has been a blessing to them and how for their marriage, and how it has caused struggles or strains or difficulties, whatever, with that. So I'm going to be including some feedback from listeners and people who've responded to my reaching out for input and feedback. As well as I found a really, like I said, I love researching for these things because I'm constantly finding amazing resources I didn't even know existed, and I'm super excited to share them with you. Again, I like researching things. I do have my bachelor's in family life science, and so this stuff is things that are near and dear to my heart, and I've been taught how to research them in an academic and professional way, and I like keeping those skills fresh. So I enjoy finding good resources for you guys. And that gets me to kind of where I wanted to start on this journey is when my husband and I were getting into the military. We were at church and we made a comment about that in our congregation at the time. And someone we didn't know approached us because they overheard this and my concerns of just about, being left behind with a toddler by myself. And he said that prior service member was grateful that they had been in the military and how it had really strengthened him and his wife's relationship because it had helped them learn how to communicate better, and it also had helped them appreciate each other more. And that was kind of a starting point for me to think about how, yes, this was going to be hard, but how there was a possibility of a lot of blessings coming from this. And so that's the question I posed online was, in what ways has being in the military strengthened your marriage and strained your marriage? And I got quite a variety of responses, and I'm going to share some of those, like I said, with you, four people, their responses. I kind of picked the ones that I felt were well thought out and different answers, because there were some people who had the same answers or very similar answers, and so I didn't want to be redundant. So I was trying to find a variety of answers as well as quality, like the ones that I felt were explained clearly, really clearly. Clear explanations. That's the phrase I was looking for anyway. But for us, I know that we have had some struggles. Communication is something that we persistently work on in our marriage, because when you're separated and you don't always know when you're going to be able to contact each other or how you're going to be able to contact each other, communication is a really important skill. And that's while you're separated, but also when you get back. The other thing is remembering to include your spouse when they're gone. That has helped a lot. And it's also absence does make the heart grow fonder. It really does. And I've learned to appreciate all the things my husband does for me when he's home. Because when he's not home, I have to do quite a few of them. Now, there are still things he can be a part of, and that's where we try to keep him integrated. But at the same time, there are things I have to learn to do. And then because of that, you have to learn to be interdependent. You have to kind of specialize. That you take care of some things, they take care of other things, and you just have to trust that the other person's got it, because you may not always be able to coordinate. And so it's knowing that, things are going to be taken care of regardless, because you can trust each other. And then it's also helped with my self-confidence. Just knowing I can do it is an awesome feeling. That, yes, I love my husband, and yes, I want him around, but you know what? I'm a big girl and I can do this. And that is a fantastic feeling also. So that gets me into responses from you guys. I am so grateful for all of them. The first one is from Joycelyn, and it is this. She says, "It made us realize that making our marriage relationship a priority was a must, especially when the soldier went away for long periods. If we didn't focus on connecting and building stronger ties, then we suffered even more when he left. Did we just want to be roommates, or did we want something deeper, something to hold on to, something to give us hope, something to look forward to when we were knee deep in the hard things? We looked for unconventional ways to connect when he did leave on deployments or TDY. We made it our normal. Because living in a military life with the future never set in stone, we needed and wanted something to have consistency and be our rock. We literally clung to each other when it got really hard. On the other hand, military throws a lot of negative influences and dark situations at our soldiers. If we weren't both committed to our marriage, family, and faith, then it was easy for those things to fall apart." And so I really loved how she pointed out the things that helped them stay strong was being committed to their marriage, their family, and their faith. And personally, I feel that having a shared faith can be a really great anchor in a military marriage. At least it is for me, and I've seen it be for others as well. That said, going on to the next contributor, Courtney said, "It made me trust him more. It's always hard because when he's deployed, but also brought us more together because we pray together, even over the phone or whatever." And again, it's a shared faith. It's finding those times for that connection and making it a priority. Okay, it's Amber, and she says, I think it has strengthened me as an individual, which in turn strengthens our marriage. Military life is not a walk in the park. My husband just finished almost 2 years of intensive training to be a pilot in the Air Force. I got through being married to him in college was hard, and it just got harder as he studied for his pilot training. So I basically am really good at being a single mom. And I think I've come to grips with it that anything that doesn't kill you makes you stronger kind of mentality. I think the hardest thing on our marriage is the inconsistency. When he is able to have a break from the craziness, I feel like our marriage goes back to great tip-top working shape. But when he's stressed for long periods of time because of a hectic and sometimes downright ridiculous schedules and expectations from the military, I feel like our marriage also suffers. And then the last one comes from Kelly, and she says, it's not made nothing harder for us. I was a single parent when I married my husband, so I did all myself, kids, work, college, and was independent already. I had my own place and kids and a job. The time away from each other helps keep our marriage going. It lets us miss each other and appreciate each other more. And that is something that I did find in the research I was looking at. According to the research that has been compiled by the National Healthy Marriage Resource Center on military service and marriage, they said the strength of a couple's marriage during deployment depends primarily on how strong it was before deployment. During periods of separation, nearly all soldiers experience some decrease in marital satisfaction. However, if soldiers felt good about their marriage prior to deployment, then couples were much more likely to stay together. Also, after reunion, couples with marital problems before the deployment more commonly distanced themselves later. A couple with high marital satisfaction before deployment had much higher chances of adjusting well to the separation. And that's something that I saw repeatedly in the answers that I was getting from these spouses. The ones who said that they were basically, no one's marriage is perfect, but that their marriage was in a good place, that they were able to bounce back. Whereas others, some said, well, and I'm not going to include their names, but some people responded, well, we ended up getting divorced, so obviously it, didn't work out. And that does happen. But considering the fact that over 50% of the military is married, and that they have found that those who are married tend to do better in the military and last longer in the military, then that is something to take into consideration. However, there was something that I found interesting, and I'm scrolling down to find it as I'm pulling this up. But basically, they were talking about the effects of duration on the separation and how they felt about it. And here, I just found it. So, most spouses predicted they would have no problem or a slight problem coping if their military spouse were to go away on assignment, such as a deployment. The percentages who predicted that they would have no problem or a slight problem of coping if the soldier were deployed decreased as the deployment length increased. And I think we've all seen this. I mean, if your husband's got to be in the field for a weekend, it's a bummer, but it's not a big deal. If it's a month, it's a little bit bigger of a bummer, but again, it's something we can cope with. But as it gets longer, it gets to be a bigger deal. It just means you're going to have to come up with adaptations that are more targeted and resilient for that separation. So this is their statistics exactly. They said less than a month separation, 95% said they would be no problem or just a slight problem. 1 to 2 month separation, 87% said it would be little to no problem. 3 to 6 months was 46% saying it would be little to no problem. 7 to 12 months, it was only 43% who said it would be little to no big deal. More than a year was only 30%. and overseas for an undetermined length was only 24%. And that's something I think we've all experienced. I know that as time has gone on, I've gotten better at handling the longer separations, but the longer separations do mean they're missing out on more. And so it means more adjustment, more work, and more stress. And so that is something that I think affects the way that these spouses who were being surveyed responded. And the survey was of Army families back in 2001. So, this was when, everything was going on. Everything had just started. So I'm sure that research would be pretty standard still today. Thankfully, I feel like the military is trying to get away from the really long ones. But again, in the same thing, it addressed Navy versus the other branches, how Navy wives go through a lot more of this just because they have sea duty I'm just blanking on the term now. But anyway, when they have to shipboard duty, that is a longer period of time than at least than a lot of the Army and Air Force deployments. So with Navy spouses, they said there was more cases of this. It also said that during separation, family members faced many more emotional and social problems, such as increased anxiety, depression, and family conflict. Spouses often experience loneliness, depression, anxiety, anger, and physical illness. Deployed personnel often felt guilty for leaving their families and might have had similar reactions to separation as did their spouses, i.e., depression, anxiety, and loneliness. And so it's something to keep in mind. It's something to think about. These situations are not easy. However, I really got a lot of comfort from the point that they made that if the marriage was already strong, then it would rebound and tend to be better. And the next point under the one I read originally, and yes, baby cuteness is being super chatty right now, and we will get to baby cuteness in just a second. She's playing. It says marital satisfaction typically decreased right before and after a soldier was deployed, but remained constant during the deployment. 18 months after the soldier returned home, marital satisfaction generally returned to levels similar to where it was before deployment. Marital quality, however, remains unchanged from mid-deployment to 18 months after deployment, and that's based on a 2000 study. So, again, a little out of date, but at the same time, I think it's still genuinely right about the same. Now, the issue is there are quite frequently jobs in the military where your spouse is gone over and over and over again, and you don't have that 18-month buffer in between. And if it takes 18 months to get back there, and then they're deploying again, it means you just got this whole cycle going around and around. And it can be really, really rough. But that's where I kind of just want to talk to you guys about some things. Oh, okay, I'm going to have to get baby cuteness. Okay, baby cuteness is now in my lap, so hopefully we can wrap this one up. But basically, what I wanted to get down to the heart of the matter and share with you all is there is hope. It is not easy. It takes a lot of effort. Communication is important. Having shared values is important. I've done a whole episode on long distance dating. Please use that. I've done ones on deployment, on how to stay connected. Military life is hard. Relationships are hard. The other hard part is not just with our marital relationships, but also with our familial relationships. We don't get home as often. I had the blessing of being able to be raised with my immediate cousins around me. I got to go to elementary school with some of my cousins. I saw my cousins all the time. I was super close with them. I was close with my second cousins. We were just a really tight-knit extended family. And my kids are not being raised with that because we're a military family. We're further away from family. And so we have to be a lot more intentional and purposeful with how we stay connected with all of our relationships and keep those going. And that is no exception for military families. But I feel in general, with this day and age, more and more jobs are having business trips, more and more people are moving away for jobs so they don't have their extended family support group. And I wanted to kind of share this topic with you on how it can be a blessing, even though it is hard. And just because it's hard doesn't mean it's impossible. But we have to be more purposeful with our relationships, and we have to work on our communication. And that's really my takeaway that I want to share with you all. My husband and I have had to work on our communication skills a lot during our marriage. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually a huge blessing. I am so grateful I have a fantastic husband who has been willing to go to an MFLAC with me and to do marriage retreats and do all of these things to help improve our marriage and to work on our communication and just build this relationship. And he really is my best friend. That's not a cliche or anything. My husband truly is my best friend, and I'm grateful for that. I know that not all marriages or all relationships are like that, and so I feel very blessed to be in that situation. But it's work, and I won't deny that. I won't joke about it. I won't cut it. Like, it really is work. But all relationships are work. And you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. And I think it breaks my heart most when I hear people say, oh, we just fell out of love. And I'm sitting there going, okay, but it's not all happiness and rainbows and unicorn and sunshine and ice cream all the time. No relationship's like that. Every relationship that is worth having is work, but it's worth it. And I hope it's worth it. Healthy relationships are worth it. Let's put it that way. And so, yes, it's going to take work. Yes, military relationships are hard. Relationships are just difficult in general. But if it is genuinely someone you love and care about, and it is a genuinely healthy relationship, then it's worth it to put in the effort. And I'm going to be completely honest, as much as I love and adore my husband, and I completely appreciate everything he does to support me in my dreams and support our children and our family in general, that does not mean we agree on everything. And that does not mean that we are always happy-go-lucky, totally smoochy in love with each other. We're best friends, which means, like any best friendship, we also argue and fight and disagree. But we've learned to work through those things, and that is what's important. So that all said, I'm going to just kind of wrap it up. Like I said, we've got a lot going on in the next little bit. Working with some people on some collabs. 100th episode dropping next week. Super excited about that. We crossed the 2,000 listener threshold. Super excited about that. So lots of good stuff going on, lots of good stuff still to come. Baby cuteness is getting big and chunky and so sweet and adorable. But I mean, just because it's hard with an infant to record like this, you're probably going to hear some baby cuteness from here on out because she's getting super, super talkative. So I'm grateful for your patience and support and encouragement. And as always, you are listening to Life of a Military Wife, and I am your host, Sam Wolf.